Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Lilith Fields. Lilith, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I am doing awesome. It is such an honor to have you here. But before we talk about why you're here, Lilith, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. You grew up loving sports. Woohoo,
Yeah.
me too. Um, and in a committed relationship with gymnastics. Now, that came to an abrupt end after I believe it was an injury in your junior year in high school, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, something like that, I've talked about this before because when you have a passion like gymnastics and something like it comes to an abrupt end like that, what was that like for you to have to start a new chapter at such a young age?
It was difficult. When you're young, I think you're a little short-sighted. And so I just, when people ask me what I wanted to be, I just said I wanted to win a gold medal in the Olympics. And I never really took into account that, the average age of a gymnast winning a gold medal in the Olympics is like 16, and that there's like a whole lot of life after that. So
Yeah.
even if I were to have completed that dream, like there's still like what else would I have needed to do after? And I never really thought about that. Like I just had that one focus. And so then when it was over, I don't know, it was my junior year of high school, and a combination of that dream ending, and then also probably a little bit of like the senior slump that you go into. I just really was like, I just kind of became not a different person, but suddenly like I wasn't training all the time. I just took off, like I decided to like just barely take like one class my senior year and go work instead. And then, I had all these like ideas that I was going to go to like Harvard or Stanford. And suddenly I was just like, whatever, college accepts me, I don't care. So it was just, I was definitely in a rut for a little while.
hmm Well, and then you kind of got over that rut because, like you said, you ended up going to Utah State, and you were still in a rut a little bit because you were going through all these different things, trying to figure out what degree you wanted to do. And then finally, you gathered up your courage. You switched your major over to theater, despite having no previous experience, and that's when you fell in love with acting. And you knew that that had filled the hole in your heart that you had, gymnastics had left. So, what made you decide, you know what, I want to try theater? This is what I think I want to do with my life.
Yeah, so I knew that I was interested in it, but I just thought that doesn't make sense. It's not logical. Everybody that goes into acting, has a connection, or they've been doing it since they were little. Utah State didn't have a film program, or I would have done film, because that's what I really wanted to do. But I just thought, I was looking around at me, and theater in Utah is really serious. Everybody and their brother can sing, and they've been doing it since they were little. And there's really a lot of talent. And so I kept picking all these majors that were like close to acting, but not quite. Like I was like, oh, broadcast journalism, because that's a little bit more logical or socially acceptable. And none of them did it for me. Finally, I was just like, you know what? You just have to try. Just go take a class. And I took a theater 101 acting class, super basic. And it was the first time I felt that same feeling that I felt when I was doing gymnastics. I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. We'll just see, let's just hope it works.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, and it worked out for you because you graduated with your BFA in theater arts and you moved to LA. And that is when you started the most abusive relationship of your life. And as we all know, it's a very hard industry to be a part of. But you did get, the way I word it is, for every yes you get 150 no's minimum when it comes to the business. And you didn't let it bring you down. Some of your highlights over the way were Dead Noon, and one of my personal favorites, one of the reasons that I love having you here, Urban Legends Bloody Mary. And Urban Legends Bloody Mary has really become some sort of a cult film, the older that it's gotten. Have you noticed like a cult resurgence in Urban Legends Bloody Mary the older it's gotten?
Totally. Like I get probably at least twice a week a message on Instagram or Facebook. Are you the Lillith that was bloody? Are you Mary Banner? And some of them are like 13 years old. And I'm just like, how is this film without Blockbuster being around, you know, where you go and you walk the aisles and something just catches your eye? Like, how are people still finding this? And then there's people that have started like a Facebook fan page, and people have Googled me and like tried to find my address and stuff. And I don't know. I just think it's super cool to me how loyal horror movie fans are.
And I've talked about that a lot because I feel like horror movie fans, it really is more like a family than it is like a fandom. Like it's a whole lifestyle. Like people that go into it, like they will spend hours and hours, cosplaying as their favorite actors, actresses, and going to these cons to meet these people. You don't get rom-com con. That's just something that doesn't happen. That's how much horror people love the industry. And, you get all these blood and guts and, disgusting things that happen in horror movies, but you also have the nicest, kind of sweetest people that are making and watching these films. Some of the nicest, kindest people I've ever met in my entire life are the biggest horror movie fans you could ever hope to meet. And I think it's amazing when you have a movie like Urban Legends Bloody Mary that, really the older it's gotten, the more of a cult following. It's like you said, you got 13-year-olds that are hitting you up, and you weren't even around for this movie yet. And I think it's absolutely amazing. And you're part of a trilogy that really is special, especially to a lot of us horror fans that grew up in the 90s, because you had Scream come out in 96, and that completely rejuvenated the horror genre. And Urban Legends is one of them that came out that all of us were affected by because we knew these urban legends. We knew the things that you were trying to accomplish in the film. They're things that we grew up doing or grew up saying. And now that you are a part of the urban legend world forever, is that something that you ever just think about and just go, wow, like, no, I am a part of this universe forever. Nobody can ever take that away.
I totally do, because I saw the first Urban Legends movie just as a college student. Um, yeah, at the movie theater, and never thinking like, oh, I'm eventually going to be part of this sequel. Um, and it like when I was making the movie, I was like, is this the same Urban Legends that I saw in the movie? Because every film's a little bit different, and Urban Legends Bloody Mary is for sure the one that I think is the most different from the other two.
Yes.
But I don't know. It does feel surreal. I don't know. It's exciting. It was definitely my favorite audition I ever have done. There was just a feeling in the room, like it's hard to tell whether people like you in the moment. And I knew from the second I walked in that door that Mary Lambert liked me. I could just tell. And I don't know, it was just really exciting to be a part of it.
And even now watching, and obviously working with Mary Lambert, somebody that horror fans adore because of Pet Cemetery, all these other things. And it's a movie that I still have people talking to me about today when we talk about underrated slashers that flew
Yeah.
under the radar, because that's the bad thing about that time at the late 90s, early 2000s, is you were getting a lot coming off of the coattails of Scream. And
Yes.
there's always been the stigma. I'm not so much anymore, but back then especially, that sequels can't be as good as the original. You had all these
Yeah.
things that were happening. So it's a movie that really flew under the radar. And for you guys that haven't seen it, I can't recommend it enough. Urban Legends Bloody Mary, you're going to have a great time. And like Lilith said, this is a lot different than the other two films in the franchise. So you go into this one to just have a good time, be entertained, look for a couple twists and turns along the way, and you're going to have a great time. So another way that you guys can keep up with Lilith and everything that she has coming up and everything that she's done is by following her on social media, because I have all her social media links down in the description. So make sure you're following her and be polite. Stay up to date on all the things she has coming up. Please don't message her asking her for her address. That is not okay. So, we know that, how horror, how you started in the horror genre with Urban Legends, Bloody Mary, Dead Noon, and things like that. But in order for you to be a part of that, Lilith, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Lilith, the first horror movie that you watched was?
The Lost Boys.
Now, this is, I've done over 470 episodes of my first horror movie, and I appreciate every single person that's taken their time out to come and talk to me about the first horror movie they watched. It really means so much to me. Like I can't express it with words, but in over 470 episodes, this is the first time I've gotten to talk about The Lost Boys. So I am so excited to finally be able to talk about this movie. So, do you remember
Cool.
about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
I was about 11 or 12. Yeah. I wasn't super little. My like parents didn't allow me to watch, that like that growing up at that time, all the Freddy movies, all the Jason movies, those were really popular. Everybody was school was talking about them. And my parents were like, that's a hard no. But for some reason, my mom just thought vampire stories were different. So vampires were allowed, nothing else was.
I think your mom just probably saw the commercial with the saxophone guy and she was like, yeah, we're going to watch The Lost Boys, Lilith. This is the movie that I'm going to allow. So,
Yeah,
now, did you watch this movie with your parents for the first time?
I totally did. Like we rented it. I didn't see it when it was out in theaters. We rented it and we were huge Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure fans. Like my parents quoted that all the time, like be excellent to each other, like if we were fighting and stuff. And I think that that's what sealed the deal. Like I came across it in the, in whatever Blockbuster, whatever store we were in. And the fact that Bill was in it, Alex Winters was in it, I was like,
Alex
Mom, it's
Winter.
going to be funny. Yes. Yeah. I was like, it's going to be funny. It's not going to be that scary. And that was what sealed the deal. So we watched it as a family.
You know that you were like, Mom, it's gonna be funny. It's not gonna be that scary. When the movie ended, your mom looked at you like most non-triumphant, Lilith.
I
Most
know.
non-triumphant. Like, so this is a
Totally.
movie, like I said, that really has stood the test of time. And I've always said that vampire movies, especially, I've talked about this the last couple episodes actually, because I've gotten to talk a little bit more about vampires lately. But there is this odd sexiness that comes with a vampire movie, whether it's Dracula, whether it's, Bram Stoker's Dracula, even if you get into like The Lost Boys, Fright Night, these movies have a certain sexiness about them. So, do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most from The Lost Boys?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, right from the movie had me right from the top. That like eerie music that it plays, the thou shalt not fall. Anyway, I just loved the music right away. I loved the whole vibe of it. I think being like a preteen, I was looking at that like California beach vibe where I was just like, oh, that's what it's going to be like to be a teenager, which by the way is a big fat lie. But that's what I thought. I was like, okay, soon I'm going to be a teenager and I'm going to be having bonfires on the beach, even though I live in Missouri, but this is what it's going to be like. And yeah, but the scene that most affected me, oddly enough, that like stuck with me the most was the Chinese food scene. It grossed me out so bad. Like when they had him, when David, what's his name, Kiefer Sutherland hands him like the Chinese food boxes and he's eating and it like turns into maggots and then the noodles turn into worms and they're like messing with his mind. I couldn't eat Chinese food for years and years. So that's probably the scene that stuck with me the most.
Well, and I think that's still one of those moments too, even to this day, when you're watching the film, and there's other movies that have, capitalized on the nastiness of that scene because what is something that we're afraid of? You're eating bugs,
Yeah.
and then like you get a movie like Ghost Ship that
Yeah.
comes along. You have the part where they think they're eating, and it turns out that they're eating maggots as well. We're watching this movie, you're like, oh, is that a Lost Boys, Easter egg there? But
Is
you,
that-
that's one of those moments again. Like every time you go to a Chinese place now, you're like, hold on.
yeah. It sticks with you a lot longer than a jump scare. I'll tell you. Like you might not scream bloody murder when you hear it or when you see it, but like anytime it pops into your mind while you're eating Chinese food, you're like, maybe not. Maybe
Mhm.
I'll pass.
And I think that's when a movie can impact you more. A jump scare, you'll think about that more in the moment. But when it
Yeah.
comes to the longevity of Final Destination, when
Well,
nobody wants to drive behind a log truck now,
yeah, it's
because
like this morning, like not logs, but still like wooden planks behind a truck this morning on my way to drop my kids off at school. I was like, yeah, let's switch lanes.
So it's moments like that, the Chinese food scene in this, the Final Destination 2, and you have the log truck scene. Those are the scenes that scare you the most because they stick with you for a longer period of time than just a nun jumping out at you really quick. So I completely agree with what you're saying there. Those are the things that have stuck in my mind forever. So, we talk about which scene affected you the most, Lilith, from the Lost Boys, but what would you say your favorite scene from the film is?
Oh, my favorite scene. I I loved and I feel like it was like the movie at the point where they start kind of like that Home Alone-esque vibe of where they're like, they have 2 hours to sunset. They know the vampires are coming for them. And so they start setting up all these booby traps. I feel like the movie almost switches tracks. Like it goes from being this like sexy, like mysterious vampire vibe to like more like a like Evil Dead, like Army of Darkness, like blood spurting vibe, and I just wasn't expecting it. So that very first kill where they actually kill Alex Winters, and then like blood just started spurting, and because I didn't know what to expect, I didn't know if it was going to be like more realistic and be like gory, or just go completely over the top. And so when they went completely over the top and he's screaming and they're screaming, I don't know, that it was like funny and scary at the same time. That was probably my favorite scene.
Yeah. And obviously, as you said, growing up at this time, you're a big Alex Winters fan,
Yeah.
so to see a
And
moment
I
like this
didn't
with
expect
him.
it. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, obviously there's going to be some deaths, but we're like, no, Bill. Even though, yeah. Anyway.
Fantastic. Well, it was obviously in Hollywood right now. Remakes, requels, sequels. That's kind of all the rage. And we have the announcement that the Lost Boys remake is in production. It is happening. They have greenlit it. It is moving forward. So, is that a movie that you're excited about, or do you kind of wish they would have just left that alone?
I, you know, I feel like it would still hold up. I mean, I've seen it multiple times, and I'm just like, like part of the charm for me is the 80s charm to it. So I don't know, but I one thing that movie did is I've loved almost every single vampire movie I've ever seen. Like I just have always loved that. So I mean, I'm still gonna see it for sure because I just
Yeah.
love vampires. I really would one day really love to be in a vampire movie, honestly. Like some people want to win Oscars. I want to be in a vampire movie. um, but yeah, I mean, I'll still definitely see it. It's one of those things I like see with hesitation, like how are they gonna like, I don't know, because it's just the whole 80s vibe and the whole like geeky like comic book talk where they like sound like they're talking about the mafia. I just don't know how they're gonna like capture that essence, like
Right.
Corey Feldman and Corey Haim were like seemed like they were really good friends in real life and like it just translated on screen so well. I don't know. I guess
See,
to answer your question, yes, but with hesitation.
and my big thing is I want to see this movie. Obviously, I'm a big horror movie fan, and I'm not anti-remake, anti-sequel, anything like that. But don't give me the same exact thing as the first one with
Yes.
CGI. If you're going
Yeah.
to do this, go for it. Make it your own film. Give me my own scares. Give me something else to remember. Don't just show me everything you showed me in the first one and make it, more new wave with cell phones and CGI. If you're going to do this, make it your own film. Like I've talked about this a lot. Evil Dead 2013, Child's Play 2019. They took that original film, they took the bones from that, and they put their own skin over top of it. They took the basic idea and they made it their own film. Please, if you're going to do a sequel, a requel, a remake, whatever have you, have some originality to it. Yes, you're remaking a film. You could still make it original. That's all I'm going to say. And I just want to say, for one, I would also love to see you in a vampire movie. Just
Oh,
throwing that
thank
out
you.
there. I think that
It would
that would
be
be tremendous. I'm putting it into the universe right now. So, um,
yes.
we've talked about your first horror movie, Lilith, and what that means to you and the Lost Boys, and how that affected you having a family night. And usually, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he helps me with this next question. But he's not here, so he told me that for today, I can be Ghostface. So I am Ghostface. So now I guess Ghostface, has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Lilith? So I can't really do the Ghostface because he's not here, but I'm Ghostface. So what would you say your favorite horror movie is?
I I don't know if this is a cliche answer, Ghostface, but my favorite movie is Scream. I love it. I was a college freshman in 1996 when it came out, and like I said before, slasher movies were not allowed in my house growing up, so it was like the first one that I saw, and for me, it was the perfect combination of, like kids that were about my age, and then uh like jump scares but enough humor in there, and just like unexpected, like completely unexpected things that, I mean, maybe it was unexpected for me because I hadn't seen one before, but like Drew Barrymore was a big star and she was like in all the commercials and I did not see the beginning coming. So I don't know, for me it was just definitely like one of the more memorable movie experiences I've had in my life, and I just have always loved it since then.
And I agree with you. And not only know the Drew Barrymore things, but I think we often forget how amazing the Billy reveal is. Because the first time we had seen it, we just watched this guy die upstairs, and then he comes down and we all go a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
No, Billy!
Like that whole moment, like I just remember being like, what? How did that happen? And I
And
think
then
that's
their ability to be so, the two guys, the ability to be like so bad, but like somehow they like got my sympathy. The whole like my mom's gonna be so mad at me, or whatever. Like
my mom and dad are gonna be so
I was just like, how am I feeling sort of bad for this guy right now? But I don't know. He was making me laugh. He was making me feel sad for him, and definitely like horrified that it wasn't that I don't know. It just
no,
all the emotions.
that's why I think that whether you love or hate Scream, you cannot deny the impact that it had on the horror genre. Um, I mean, and just look at the movies that came out in 94, 95 compared to the movies that came out in 97, 98 in the horror genre, and how Scream completely changed all of it. And I think that you're right. I think that it's one of the most important horror movies of all time. And people laugh at me when I say that, but I'm like, without Scream, I want you to think about all the things that you wouldn't have now if Scream wouldn't have existed.
Yeah.
And that all goes back
Yeah.
again to what I believe was the first attempt at that by Wes Craven, was Wes Craven's New Nightmare, when he made his meta Freddy Krueger movie. It didn't
Yeah.
work. So he was like, well, let me try this in a more original way. And he did it with Scream. And the meta landed, and everybody thought it was brilliant. And the kids were sexy. They were smart. They were hip. You were really
Yeah.
easy to root. This is one of those horror movies where you're rooting for the kids just as much as you're rooting for the villain. Sydney is just as iconic as Ghostface. You can't say that for a lot of.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Sydney, all the characters. Like I loved all the characters. I loved Gil Weathers. You can't help but cheer for Dewey. Like you love all the characters, and even the bad guys. I don't know. I just it's one of those movies that my kids are all so little. The only horror movie that they've even seen is mine. But it's one that I like can't wait to show them when they're older. Like just because I know it's gonna be a fun experience.
Yeah, I can't
Like,
wait to see how they experience it too.
and it will still completely hold up all these years later.
Yes, I agree. So, I've had an amazing time talking to you about your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie, and everything in between. But before I let you go, we always end this with the same question. We're going to bounce back to The Lost Boys. And what we're going to do here, Lilith, is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, here's the thing. We're not being critics. We're not judging The Lost Boys on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. All we're doing is ranking The Lost Boys on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Lilith, what would your ranking of The Lost Boys be?
5 skulls completely. Like it turned me on to a whole new genre. It made me like a vampire fan. I'm not like your typical horror movie fan. I was just like blonde gymnast, athlete, whatever. But like then this whole other side that is just, suddenly interested in like Army of Darkness and Evil Dead and making horror movies and being in it. And it started from that movie. So definitely 5 for impact for
That's
sure.
awesome. That's awesome. And like I said, guys, we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, I want to remind you I have all of Lilith's social media links down in the description. So make sure you're following her to stay up to date on everything that she has coming up. Lilith, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already,
Sure.
please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.